The French Vosges, a natural mountain landscape in the heart of Europe. Its rocks and forests offer a rich habitat for abundant wildlife. And its emblem is the stork. Sunrise on the day of the equinox, March the 21st, the prelude to spring. On the Grand Ballon, the highest peak in the Vosges, there is still snow on the ground. But it started to melt everywhere. The snow melt cascades in rivulets down to the valley. On sun-warmed branches, blackbirds and titmice search for nutritious insects. In the lower-lying deciduous forests, the snow has already disappeared. Lone patches of ice in streams still hint at the cold winter past. A hedge sparrow heralds the coming warmer weather. It's April. The still bare forest is flooded by spring sunshine. Its rays act like a signal to the trees. Delicate buds burst open and the first beech leaves unfold. They absorb the sun's energy, channeling it to the tree and stimulating growth. Fresh greenery begins to sprout everywhere, and within a few short weeks, the forest is in full sap. With the cold season barely over, the storks begin to return from their winter quarters in Spain and Africa. 30 years ago, they had almost entirely disappeared. Today, there are 400 resident breeding pairs in the Vosges region. In spring, storks will usually return to the nests they left the previous year, as here near Münster in France. They busily go about rebuilding their nests, though they may not always agree on the exact design. A stork nest is around 1 meter in diameter and can weigh well over 500 kilograms, and you need masses of fresh twigs to build it. Nest building is exhausting work, so good nutrition is vital. To provide enough food, storks need a damp meadow landscape habitat with shallow ponds and lush grassland where they can search for small creatures. The Münster Valley has plenty of stork meadows, a good reason for the feathered emblem of the Alsace and the Vosges to return here. Above the valleys, gnarled old beech trees fringe the Alpine meadows. Their twisted trunks bear witness to the harsh mountain climate and the relentless wind. Solitary sentinels, they brave nature's rougher side, permitting the occasional glimpse of the far-distant Rhine Valley. Wood anemones bloom in the sunny meadows. And in the shelter of bushes and herbs, snails and beetles also survive the winter at over 1,000 meters above sea level. Down in the valley, it's high season for stork breeding. By late May, almost all the stork pairs in the Münster Valley have had offspring. Even the very small chicks are insatiable. Their parents have to gather 1 kilo of food per young stork every day. They barely have time for a brief clattered greeting before one of them is off again on the hunt for food.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
The Vosges region is not only renowned for its storks, its extensive forests are famous too. In the northern Vosges, deciduous forests that are rich in species often reach up to the higher slopes. Here and there, deeply fissured sandstone outcrops tower above the treetops. Water, wind, and frost wear away at the stone, creating curious shapes, like this honeycomb weathering pattern. The red coloring comes from the iron content of the sandstone. Lizards enjoy basking in the sunshine on rocky ledges. And it's an excellent vantage point for the kestrel to prepare his next hunting foray. The forest's closed canopy offers many animals protection and sustenance. In its shade, a hedgehog hunts for insects and snails. Late May, and hinds give birth to their offspring. The fawn's hides are initially white-spotted. This gives them excellent camouflage in the dappled light of the forest floor. In the North Vosges Nature Reserve, many areas are under protection. The forest dung beetle can forage away here in peace and quiet. Fungi, dung, and rotting vegetation are its favorite delicacies. The hedgehog, on the other hand, is a predator. It's mainly carnivorous. It diligently rummages around on the forest floor, often taking dung beetles by surprise. The kestrel is also on the hunt. Hovering in one place in the air, it searches for its prey. Chamois aren't on his list, they're too big. The rugged mountainsides in the south are an ideal habitat for mountain goats. It was only in 1956 that they were released into the wild in the upper Vosges. Today, there are several hundred of them. In the mountains, the weather can change very quickly. Looming clouds herald a storm. The storks return to their nests. Their eyries are at the mercy of wind and weather. The adult birds must protect their young from the rain and cold, or their delicate down would quickly become saturated. Not even the adult stork's plumage is entirely waterproof. If the rain persists, their feathers become soggy and heavy. This makes it almost impossible for them to fly off in search of food. Some use the opportunity to beautify their nests, or perhaps to sire some offspring. When the summer is hot and dry, stormy showers are a blessing for the forest. At last, the plants get a proper soaking. But do the caterpillars taste any juicier? In the dripping wet forest, a lynx seeks a dry spot. To the melodic territorial call of a blackbird. Tirelessly, the spotted woodpecker hammers away at a branch. Envious rivals are given short shrift. Lynx were released back into the wild here as recently as 1983, a controversial act in this area. Not everyone was happy to see this predator's return. Young chamois deer forage unsuspectingly. But this time, danger lurks close by. The lynx is rarely seen during the daytime. It patrols its territory, spanning several hundred square kilometers, mainly after dark. A closer look at the southern Vosges Mountains reveals a wide variety of wildflowers, herbs, and grasses. The willow herb grows on rocky hillsides and is a great favorite of the chamois. The mountain pansy, on the other hand, only flourishes in damp mountain meadows. After the rains, beetles venture forth from their shelters. For snails, the damp leaves and fruit are a gastropod paradise. The last raindrops soon disappear. The damp evaporates, rising in thick clouds from the forests. For the storks, the first thing is to get their wings dry. The young imitate their elders energetically. They're growing fast and need plenty of food. This means the adults are constantly on the go, trying to keep up with the demand. They catch mice, frogs, snakes, worms, and insects on the meadow, around 800 grams for themselves, plus 1 kilo for each chick every day. They pay no attention to the grey heron nearby. Streams are the lifeline of the valleys. Until the 16th century, these unspoiled meadows in the valley of the river Sauer were home to the legendary aurochs. The water attracts creatures of all sizes, big and small. It's the mating season. The mating dance of these dragonflies looks like a rather complicated business. Other insects have evidently found much simpler methods. Annoying rivals don't make the business of reproduction any easier either. Countless species of insects ensure that their future generations will continue to populate the fields. Many of the lakes in the Vosges are surrounded by moors. Paddling away on the water's surface is a mallard duck. It's Europe's most common dabbling duck and can survive almost anywhere. It builds its nest among the reeds along the shore. Cotton grass is a typical peat bog plant. Its grassy blades provide good protection for frogs. Almost motionless, this frog waits for its prey. Its diet consists of insects, including the ordinary dragonfly. The inconspicuous sundew is one of the few carnivorous plants. Exuding sticky droplets, the sundew traps insects, digests them, and extracts their nutrients. This is how the plant manages to survive in the sparse moor soil. Nutrient poor, the moors are home to a wide variety of highly specialized animals and plants. But it's a finely balanced habitat. The moors in the Vosges are strictly protected. It takes a few months before a young stag can use its antlers as weapons. In June, their antlers are still growing and are covered by a nutrient-rich velvet sheath. Deer spend around 8 hours a day browsing. They eat almost any vegetation they can find in the forest. The immature antlers are still mostly a nuisance, though they are perfect for scratching those hard-to-reach spots. Between meals, the deer rest and ruminate. This helps them digest even the most fibrous food. More than 1,000 deer roam the extensive forests in the northern Vosges. In the hollow of an old tree, hornets have built their hive. The entrance to the hornet's stronghold is under strict guard. Anyone flying in or out is checked out thoroughly. The hornet offspring in the nest are fed with captured insects. The swarm lasts for just one summer. Only the queen spends the winter here so she can start a new hive next year. Back in the Münster Valley, towards the end of July, the young storks are almost fully fledged. Only their dark beaks distinguish them from their elders now. At 1 meter tall and weighing 3 to 4 kilograms, the fledglings are as big and heavy as a fully grown stork. Those who can already fly now follow their elders out into the meadows. The young storks have to learn to forage on their own. Often they will follow an older stork in the group, gathering practical experience along the way. They don't have much time, as the storks are getting ready to head south quite soon. The wren is the smallest of the local bird population. It lives off the abundant insect life in the forest. Spiders are among its favorite foods. The beech nuts are starting to ripen. In the forest, summer is at its zenith. The beech is the most important tree in the Vosges. Under favorable conditions, they can reach heights of up to 40 meters. Beeches don't bear fruit every year. Their so-called fruiting years come along only every few years when their beech nuts grow in profusion. The hilltops of the southern Vosges are mostly bare. They're known as ballons, and only the occasional wind-hardened beech is to be found here. A wide variety of grasses and herbs covers the high mountain range along the Route de Crête and the Ballons. Their flowers are popular pit stops for small creatures. Flies, beetles, butterflies and grasshoppers enjoy the refreshment of the sweet nectar and pollen. Thistles might be unpleasant for humans, but for insects and birds they are a veritable banqueting table. Summer is time for sweet, ripe fruit, including blueberries. Mice and grasshoppers enjoy them just as much as the chamois do. They gorge till they're big and fat in preparation for winter in the mountains. In August, all the young storks are now full grown. Young and old are all well nourished and now gather in the meadow to prepare for the big departure. At the end of summer, some 2/3 of the Münster Valley storks take off and head south. Covering around 200 kilometers a day, it takes them around 2 weeks to reach their winter quarters in Spain or North Africa. In the highlands of the Vosges, summer ends early. It's September. Grass and herbs begin to wither. The sun sets earlier every day. Clear, cold nights herald the arrival of autumn. Night frosts often persist until well into the morning. The weather conditions create moods that reveal the mountains in all their glory, while the valleys below are shrouded in mist. The chamois retreat into the lower, more protected mountain regions. On some days, the autumn air is crystal clear. From the Grand Ballon, even the faraway Alps can be seen. In the northern Vosges, primeval noises echo throughout the autumnal forests. In full rut, Belling or roaring loudly, stags challenge their opponents. Only the strongest stag will become the lead bull and enjoy mating precedence. Autumn transforms the deciduous Vosges forests into a sea of brilliant colour. Even though the colourful display is scientifically explained as being due to the trees losing their chlorophyll, these rich golden yellow hues still seem like magic to the eye. The trees will soon be bare. The forests of the Vosges will have to wait until the storks return before they can burst into life again. The Andes, the longest mountain chain on the planet. All the elements of nature are present here. Creating a unique nature paradise. Bizarre and yet imposingly beautiful. However varied the landscape, it's always influenced by this one mountain range. All forms of life find a natural habitat here. Torres del Paine is one of the most spectacular mountain ranges of the Andes. It's the majestic center of the eponymous national park in southern Chile. The striking granite peaks soar almost 3,000 meters into the skies. The steep slopes and wide valleys are home to grazing guanacos. Local Indio law says that the mountains are their shepherd, watching over them constantly with eyes of stone. Guanacos are the wild cousins of the llama, essential companions to the Andean inhabitants. They live in small family herds. The alpha male keeps a vigilant eye on his little group. Their thick coat and tasty meat has always made them a favorite target for hunters, so much so that they have become virtually extinct in many parts of South America. But today, in the Torres del Paine National Park, they have nothing to fear, and their numbers are rising steadily. There is no other animal as closely associated with this area as the guanaco. It could almost be called the king of the Andes, were it not for this creature, the largest vulture in the world. The Andean condor, lord of the skies. With a wingspan of over 3 meters, they glide on the updrafts high above the mountain peaks. Seemingly weightless, they can reach heights of up to 7 kilometers. The remains of this guanaco no longer interest the scavengers. They've obviously been lying around for too long. The guanacos have adapted to the harsh conditions of life in the mountains. Like all camelids, guanacos ruminate their food to make the tough grass more digestible. The mighty granite massif of the Paine Mountains indicate how formidable the forces were that millions of years ago created the range of fold mountains that is the Andes. The peaks are often veiled by dense cloud and are only revealed when powerful winds blow the cloud away. In the high altitudes of the Andes, the nights are often crystal clear. The moon and stars seem to be almost within reach. In the early hours of dawn, the famous silhouette of Mount Fitzroy is revealed in all its glory. At its feet lies the largest ice field in South America, the Campo de Hielo Sur. Its glaciers fill valleys to the east and west of the Andes. The enormous ice mass of the Perito Moreno Glacier creeps forward about a meter a day, until it reaches the Lago Argentino, the biggest freshwater lake in Argentina. At the glacier's 60-meter-high edge, large pieces break off continuously and plunge into the lake. Some 2,000 kilometers to the north, on the Pacific western side of the Andes, lies the Valdivian rainforest. In the cool, damp climate, lush vegetal cover flourishes, absorbing the frequent rainfall like a sponge. When it isn't raining, clouds of steam envelop the treetops. The dense green wilderness seems almost enchanted. It's home to nearly as many species as a tropical rainforest, and some of its flora and fauna is not to be found anywhere else in the world. Fed by the moisture in the air, the plants, and the earth, little brooks are transformed into rushing waterfalls. There are over 700 species of plant that can only be found in this spot on Earth. The Valdivian rainforest is one of the few rainforests outside the tropics. But even this paradise is in danger. Much of the forest has already been cleared, and mankind is advancing on the rest. Oblivious to this, austral parakeets indulge in their cool daily shower to groom their plumage. In Europe, these birds are mostly found only in aviaries. Here they can enjoy unbounded freedom. One of the primary features of the Valdivian rainforest is its unusual trees. These Araucaria trees, for instance, can live up to 2,000 years. They're among the oldest trees on Earth. Here in the shadow of the Andes is where they originated, although they're grown all over the world as ornamental plants. The Andean fir, or monkey puzzle tree as it's also called, is resilient. Its twigs are covered with hard leaves, each of them sporting a thorn at the end. It's this resistance that makes it popular with gardeners. Just like the fuchsia, which grows in its shade. The Araucaria's thick bark protects it from fire and heat. Despite the damp climate, this is important, as the habitat here is under constant threat from volcanic eruptions. Fire and ice, typical of the Andes. Countless volcanoes, such as the glacier-covered Villarrica, are still active today. About 2,500 kilometers further north, there's also still plenty of volcanic activity. Like harbingers of hell, geysers spew out their hot contents into the icy air. At over 4,000 meters above sea level lies this extreme landscape. The geyser field of the El Tazio volcano. The water emerging from the geysers and the underground hot springs can be up to 100 degrees centigrade. The territory couldn't be more hostile. And yet, even here, life abounds. A young vicuña stays close to its mother's side as she forages along the stony edges of the hot springs. The vicuña's fur is thicker than that of the guanaco and protects it from the icy cold. The Andean plateau also features saltwater lagoons that can form the backdrop to some unusual balletic performances. A Chilean flamingo rotates gracefully on its own axis, but will happily perform a pas de deux with an Andean flamingo. Its rhythmical steps churn up the mud at the bottom of the lake, and with it, the microorganisms that they feed on. Their bills have fine gill-like structures that act like a sieve, filtering the salt water which flows back out of their bills. The microorganisms stay behind. Nutritious salt crabs and algae are their staple diet, and they can even drink the saline water too. Despite their delicate appearance, flamingos are extremely hardy. Even the cold climate in the Andes doesn't harm these winged dancers. The southwestern part of the plateau is extremely arid. Outside the rainy season, the Salar de Uyuni, the world's largest salt flat, is a white, crystalline desert with precious treasures. White gold. There's up to 10 million tons of salt here. The Atacama is the driest desert in the world, stretching from the highest inland mountain peaks of the Andes to the Pacific coastline. Here, the warm air rising from the land meets the cold waters of the Humboldt Current, creating coastal fog. Thanks to this wonderful phenomenon, life-giving moisture is carried to the arid coastal slopes. The damp air is then precipitated onto plants in fine pearls of moisture. Especially in ridged areas of the coastland, this has formed subtropical cloud forests. Exotic plants thrive in all their beauty, although it virtually never rains. Further inland, it's arid, and undemanding columnar cactuses and succulents abound. The burrowing owl's plumage blends in with its surroundings almost perfectly. The camouflage allows it to spot its prey unobserved. Its attention has been drawn by a daegu. It usually takes only a few wing beats to grab the little rodent, but this time he misses. Burrowing owls nest and live on the ground. Their burrows are about a meter deep and are often inhabited by several pairs of owls at a time. To the east of the Andes lies the Argentinian Pampas. Endless grass steppes convey a sense of solitude. Open landscapes like this are a favorite habitat for the Patagonian fox. And its favorite prey, the mara. Maras are native only to Argentina. In a tribute to its long legs and ears, it's also known as the Patagonian hare. Mara breeding pairs stay together for life, unusual for mammals. The fox has already sensed their presence. But thirst can sometimes be more urgent than caution. Maras normally stay in the shelter of the undergrowth, wary of their enemies. Even when they're drinking, they're constantly vigilant, fleeing at the first sign of an approaching enemy. All this fox can do is find easier prey. For For a while, the Patagonian hare is safe. And before it goes back to nibbling the grasses, herbs and bushes of the pampas, it grabs the chance of a quick nap. Like prickly statues, the cacti tower upwards, giving the landscape here in the shadow of the Andes a distinctive skyline. The bizarre rock formations look almost like modern sculpture. But no mortal hand could have carved anything more beautiful in stone than the wind, water and sun have created here over the centuries. At the southernmost tip of the continent, the foothills of the Andes end in the sea. Its barren coast is home to large colonies of Magellanic penguins. Heads held high, penguins master the rather difficult trek to the ocean. Well, most of the time. Mating calls echo across the Patagonian coast. September is the mating season for Magellanic penguins. Each pair keeps a beady eye on its burrow. The male sticks doggedly to his lady's side. But just prior to her laying her eggs, a closer inspection of the burrow takes top priority. He can only hope that the burrow he's chosen will gain her approval, and he sticks to what he does best. He puts back his head and calls. Magellanic penguins feed mainly on fish, squid and krill. Once they get to the water, penguins are in their element. They plunge head first into the swells. The seas off the southern tip of the South American continent are rough. Meter-high waves gather and smash against the shore. This penguin farewell is almost tender. An unusual encounter of a South American kind. The green coastal bush proved irresistible to the guanaco. Juicy grass is scarce in the steppes. Even Darwin's rheas hunt for seeds, plants and insects here. Rheas and guanacos often live in close proximity to each other. A combination of the sharp eyes of the flightless birds and the guanaco's finely tuned sense of smell are an excellent early warning system that often benefits the penguins too. A colony of South American sea lions. They're far away and pose no direct threat to the penguin colony. Baby sea lions take to the water soon after birth. They learn the all-important skill of swimming in the sheltered shallows. It's not unusual to find colonies of over 100 animals. It's no easy task finding your mum in a crowd like this. Just like any other babies, the first thing they do is cry as loudly as possible. The mother calls, and her scent leads the pup back to the safety of her presence. While the mother is out hunting, the pups are looked after in a kind of nursery. Plentiful fish and a sheltered beach make this coast a veritable sea lion paradise. The southernmost foothills of the Andes are here on the Tierra del Fuego Islands. Countless rivers and fjords cross the archipelago like lifelines. It's the breeding season, and food is in short supply. The black-crowned night heron is forced to hunt for food by day, too. The wind. It's the indisputable lord of the island of Tierra del Fuego. After its deserts, rainforests, steppes and glaciers, the multifaceted nature paradise of the Andes begins and ends here.